Hi, I am Hans Wilhelm, and in this video in the Life Explained series I would like to talk about the spiritual aspects of mourning or grief. They are our common reactions to the loss of a loved one through death. For many of us this can be a devastating and sad moment, and we need time to heal and readjust. Let's look at the spiritual side. As discussed in my video on death and dying, the process that we call death is the separation of the soul from its earthly garment, the physical body. The time of death and the way of death are no accidents. They both are of the soul's own choosing. The person, when he or she was alive, may not be aware of this, but the soul knows when the time and place was right. Everybody's death is a perfectly timed event, and there are no mistakes. So, if we now deeply feel that the person should not have died, and we are mourning here, if we feel that way, that they should not have died, we are not only interfering with God's business, but also disregard the free will of the soul that has now made its transition. One thing we have to understand right away: the person who we love has not really died, because there is no such thing like death. The soul of the person is eternal and very much alive. In many cases even more alive and joyful than it was in the physical body before. It's so excited and now ready for the new adventure, returning back to the light. So strictly speaking, it's the time of celebration instead of time of mourning. This is what the early Christians have done when one of them left their earthly body. They celebrated. But it is understandable that we grieve or mourn because we are acting from a limited awareness. Most of us have no idea of what is actually happening to the soul and to us. Furthermore, our culture expects us to act devastated and full of grief, and even wear black as an outward sign of our sorrow. I'm not saying we should not be sad during the time of loss, if that is what we're feeling, because we must always honor our feeling. But we must also honor the soul of the beloved one. We must allow the soul to go its path and its new adventure. The soul deeply feels our sorrow and grief and pain and suffers with us. It desperately wants to help and comfort us in our confusion and devastation. For the soul it is a time of freedom and joy, but excessive long grieving by relatives can bind the soul, not only to the mourners, but also to the earth sphere for a very long time. Let's face it, many mourners who want to hold on to him as they consider, because they consider him their property. In truth, they're actually only thinking about themselves and do not help the soul of the one they declare they love so dearly. This reminds me of a time when I lived in Africa, and I had a dear friend from Germany. She was there only for a couple of years, but she was the only child, and her parents had a terrible time of letting her go. They continuously wrote her how lonely they were without her, and how could she have done this to them. And I remember how painful it was for her to read their letters and get their phone calls. Her parents were not thinking of her, but only of themselves. And that is exactly how the departed soul will feel when we cannot let go. Now let's be honest, we are only mourning for ourselves. It is all about us. We feel left behind, and we may feel lonely and may be afraid to continue living without that person. And it is okay to give ourselves a period of very natural grief or readjustment that I call healing. But we have to face our emptiness, and don't fill our emptiness with pain. Instead, let us become aware and appreciate the love that is still in us. We can now channel this love into new directions and new creations, and particularly to new people, other people. Death is also a new beginning and opportunity for us to express our love and become who we are meant to be. But some of us find it very, very difficult to let go and move on. Let's look at the underlying true reason for excessive grieving and mourning. It is always undeclared love. The pioneer in death and dying research, Dr. Elizabeth Kübler-Ross, has written about this extensively. The person who experiences deep and prolonged grief believes that he or she has not verbally said "I love you" to the person who has died. And now they feel deep remorse about this omission, because they believe it's too late to tell them now. And of course it never is. The soul can hear and feel all our thoughts, and the soul knows about the love that the person has. So it is never too late to say these words, even if this soul is no longer in the physical body. In my children's book, I Will Always Love You, I have written about this how important it is to say "I love you," not only to our pets, but to everybody in our life. Not just thinking it, but actually saying it. It is the only cure against excessive mourning and grieving. Once we let go and see the true picture of what have actually happened, we will understand that the love that we have for that person who made the transitions always will be. It will connect us forever, but not in a binding and confining fashion, but as a sign of total freedom. And then we can join the celebration and rejoice with the soul that is now ready for its new adventure. We wish the soul well because we know that most likely in a short while we will be reunited again. So let us send loving thoughts to the departed soul and also to ourselves.